Okay, so I have a video here showing you how to add music with the Fallout 4 Creation Kit. And what I'm planning on doing is just quickly showing you how to add the music, and then after that going into more detail if you want to stick around for that. So obviously you're going to want your music, and it's going to need to be in .wav format. So what I'd recommend doing is going under Data, Music, create a folder named after the plugin, and then add your music to that. And now you want to go and load up the creation kit. And once the creation kit is loaded, you go to File, Data, select your master, which is going to be Fallout.esm, or any other masters you plan on loading up, and any other plugins you plan on editing as well. I'm not going to get too into plugins and dependencies and so on and so forth, but if you're loading up a plugin and you want to edit that specific plugin, you'd go ahead, double check it, double click it, whatever, and click Set as Active File, but I'm not doing that. So I'm just going to load up Fallout4.esm and click OK. And it's going to take a while to load up, depending on your system. Okay, so when it's loaded up, go ahead and save the plugin and name it, and save as often as possible. And like I said, at first quick and dirty, and then further in depth. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a single music track, and what you have are music tracks and types. Music types are made up of several different music tracks, so it's kind of like a CD. And then you have the individual tracks here. So I'm going to right click in here, click New, give it an editor ID. It's good to prefix it with something. 00 is what I use. If it's for a specific mod, I use, like for an ocarina mod that I have, I use 00OCA, but name it however you like. And I have Castlevania here, so I'm going to call it Vampire Killer. And I'll just quickly go over palette tracks. They are tracks made up of other tracks. So you add several of them and it makes up a composition. So I have silent track, which is generally for transitioning between tracks. So obviously I just have a duration to set here, and it's silent for that period of time. And then I have single track, which is probably going to be the most often used type here. So I'm going to choose the file, and I have my music test and Castlevania music here. I'll get into this later, but for now I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to click music type and add a music type. Now you'll never be selecting, when you go to add music to something, you'll never be selecting an individual track. You'll be selecting a music type. So keep that in mind. You pretty much always need to add a music type. So I'm going to call this Castlevania Vampire Killer type. And priority is important, so I should go over it now. Obviously, if something has a higher priority than another music type, it will play over that. If it has a lower priority than another music type, it will obviously either queue up or not play at all. So I'm going to give this a priority of 80. And here's where you add the individual track. So I right click, click New, and add Vampire Killer, and I pretty much have my music added. Now you need to decide where you're going to add it. So if I wanted to add it to just one individual cell, like a house mod, sometimes house mods are made up of multiple cells, but you get the idea. I'd go over to the Cell View tab here, and I'd select Interiors, and I'd select the house mod or wherever I want to add music to. Double click it, or no, I'm sorry, not double click it. I constantly do that. It takes a while to load up here. I'd right click it, go to Edit, and I would select the music type, which if I scroll up here, I have Castlevania Vampire Killer type. So I'm not going to do that for this, but you get the idea. Let's say I wanted to change the music for all of Diamond City or all of the Commonwealth. I'd go to World on the top here, then I'd go to World Spaces, and then I'd select Commonwealth or Diamond City or Good Neighbor. Now Sanctuary Hills World is Sanctuary Hills before the apocalypse, I believe, so it's not really that relevant. And over here I have music, so I'd select from the music types here the music I wanted to play throughout the Commonwealth. Now if it has a lower priority than the Explore music, that's by default, the Explore music will take priority over it. So keep that in mind. Lastly, you can select it for different regions. So if I go to World, Regions, I have all these regions. I can, if I go to Sound here, once I select the region, I can change the music type for those regions. as you can see here. Now, some don't actually have the ability to select music type. You can enable this type of data, but I would recommend not doing that. You should be able to alter all of the music for each region without going ahead and messing with things that aren't already enabled. So, as you can see here, I have a lot of selections. And that is pretty much it. Okay, now I'd like to go just a little more in depth if you're curious as to what some of the options are. Under music track, let's go ahead and open up Vampire Killer. And you can see here, let's go to palette track first. For palette track, I can set the duration of the track and how long it takes to fade out. I obviously can add a track, but you would be adding an already existing music track. So keep that in mind. And you have silent track, which I explained and is completely self-explanatory. Single track, which I went over. But here you have the finale. You can add a bit to the end, which is the finale, clearly. And you have cue points, which, from what I understand, controls the kind of fading in and out of the finale. So at different points, it'll fade in, and you can kind of set a curve for it. Loop is pretty self-explanatory. You set where the loop begins and where the loop ends, and you set how many times you want it to loop. Conditions, let me check has conditions because that needs to be checked. Let's say I only wanted Castlevania Vampire Killer to play when I'm done a certain kind of part of the main quest. So what I do is I keep right clicking here. I'd click new. And then for the function, you have like tons of functions. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and set it for only playing after I complete a certain part of the main quest. So what I do is I check to see what the quest stage is. So I'd go get stage here. And the parameter here, 1 is the actual quest. So the main quests are prefixed with MQ. So just select a random one here. And I have these comparisons, which I went over in my other video, but exclamation point equals means unequal. Obviously, greater than, equal to, less than, they're all pretty self-explanatory. 2 equal signs just means equal. When you're talking about like programming and scripting, 1 equal sign assigns a value to that variable, but I won't really get into that. So let's say I only wanted to play after the, let's say, stage 10 of main quest 105. I'd go ahead and check that, click OK. And I have that condition. It, in true CreationKit form, does not seem to be showing up. So what I do is exit out of here or click OK, not exit out. And here it shows up. So actually, I don't want that condition, so I just delete that. And obviously, conditions are not endless, but there are several options. You can customize when your music plays pretty efficiently. So I've explained that. Let me go ahead and explain music types and just a couple options that come along with that. So let me open up Castlevania Vampire Killer type. I've explained priority. Now I have doesn't queue. This is the one thing I'm not entirely sure about, but what I imagine, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes music types queue up to be played, and I imagine if this is set to be in a queue, it just doesn't queue. So, abrupt transition, self-explanatory. Plays one selection. If I had plays one selection enabled and I had multiple tracks on this music type, it would just play one of them. Cycle tracks. This will go ahead and cycle the tracks, and if you want it to stay in order from where you've added it, you just check maintain track order. Ducks current track. Let's say there's music playing already that has a priority of 90, so that's going to take precedence over this. So if I wanted to play quietly under that track, I'd check ducks current track. I'd set the fade, and I'd set the ducking in decibels. So if I set the ducking to like 15 decibels, it would play 15 decibels lower. So let me click 0 there. And I've gone ahead, I believe, and explained that. And that is it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.